Hi class, this week we are going to learn how to make a 6-month dollar plan using given numbers. And although we only have one activity planned for this week, this activity can be really time consuming, but no worries, I will show you how to make this plan step by step. Okay? Let's see the layout of the 6-month plan first. We have a total numbers at the top of the big table, and we also have a huge 6-month plan table at the bottom. Okay. Within the 6-month plan table, we have several sections. We do have sales section, reductions section, stock, which includes BOMs and EOMs. We also have purchases and maintained markup sections too. Within each section, we know that they all include last year's number and this year's number. Okay. Some of those sections, they do include dollar numbers and also percentage numbers. Well, let's see the case first. The case tells us last year's actual numbers. Okay. It says last year we have BOM numbers, sales numbers, and markdown numbers in this table. So the very first step we can do is to put those numbers into the spreadsheet table here. Okay. Reading from the first column, we know that the BOM stock of last year would be reflected here in last year's BOM row. If we convert this column on the left to the row on the right. And the second step is to fill in the cells. Be really cautious that we are filling in cells in dollars of last year's number. So in this 6 months plan table, it is at the very top. Okay, the very top row is usually last year's sales in dollars. And for markdowns, make sure we are completing last year's dollar numbers. It is usually located at the top of this reduction section. And you might be wondering why here we have reductions and here we have markdowns. Be reminded that reductions usually includes markdowns, and we do have other numbers included under reductions, but if you don't see, for example, discounts, then usually markdown numbers need to be filled in as reduction numbers. And next, we have several other numbers to complete. Here it says the overall store sales increase is planned at 20% overall last year. So it means here this year's sales, this year's planning sales is 20% more than last year's total retail sales. Since this is a overall number for the season, we usually put this overall number at the top table. And next, this year we are going to make 7.5% of markdowns, and this number 7.5 is the reduction percent of the sales, which is here. And also it says here the initial markup percentage is planned at 65%. which is here 65%. Okay. Also we have additional information. It says February the 1st we have a stock level of $490,000. And although this number is reported on February the 1st, it seems like this number is given for the following season, but we know the BOM of February equals to the EOM of January. So what we need to fill in here is EOM of the January instead of BOM of the February. Okay. And also, since we know the February's BOM stock of last year, we can use this number to fill in the end of month EOM of January of last year. The 2 additional cells to be filled here. And then we don't have any more given information. We can start planning. Okay. So the very first step I would like you to do is to find a seasonal sales total using the sum formula. Now we know that last year the total sales in the fall is $900,000. Okay. And we can use this number to fill in the table here. Last year's actual sales equals to the seasonal total here. And the distribution, so we do have percentage rows here. And this percentage is monthly percentage to the seasonal total. So TT indicates this is a distribution to total row. So what we can do here is to put the monthly, the August sales number over the season's number. Okay, because we would like to apply the same formula to the row, we actually need to fix the total cell here using the dollar signs. And we can drag it through the row. And we can verify if this row or the percentages get up to 100% using the formula. Because in theory, with all 6 months added, we should have 1% here. In terms of this year's sales, because we knew that we anticipated 20% increase over the last year's actual sale. So for this year's plan, we can use actual sales number of last year times 1 or 100% times the 20% here. And this will be the planned seasonal total of this year, which would be also this figure. Okay. And also read from the instruction here, we assuming that all these distributions are the same. Okay. So here, this year's sales distribution, we can use last year's number. Okay. The cell C15 should equal to the cell C13. And we can apply everything here to see Well, if this equals to 100%, and we can double check. And then for this year's monthly plan sales, what we can do is use the formula, the percentage distribution of this month times the season total. Let me use a dollar sign to fix the position of the season total, and then I can apply the formula to the row. Okay, so that's how we complete the sales section. And the next step we are going to complete is find the reductions. Well, since we know that total reductions of sales equals to 7% 5 of the seasonal sales. So we know that here the reduction of sales percentage can be filled. This cell equals to 7.5 in percentage. And that's how we can know the planned dollar numbers using the percentage times the planned sales of this season. So we know the seasonal reduction total here. How about the distribution? Since we know each month's reduction last year, what we can do is to get the seasonal total of last year first. And using the same method we did for the sales distribution, we also can get the reduction in percentage. Again, this is a distribution, and we can see if this equals to 100%, but in theory it should. For this year, we know we use the same distribution, so this year's plan distribution or reduction to total should equals to last year's reduction to total. Okay. How about the reduction of this year? Since we know the distribution, it's quite easy that we can times the monthly distribution with the season total to get the monthly dollar. Again, we apply this formula to the row. And the last percentage row, it is not the distribution percent, but the reduction percent of sales. So this row we do planned reduction in dollars over planned sales. And we can drag it through. Okay. Just check one cell to see if that's what we want. The next one, since we even know the BON dollars of last year and also the sales of last year, then it is easy to calculate the SSR. SSR equals, we know SSR stands for stock to sales ratio. So what we put is the stock over the sales. Okay. Stock BOM of the last year over sales of last year. Make sure we are using both numbers of last year's. And we know this year we are using the same SSR number. So for this year, we know the SSR of this year equals the SSR of last year. We apply this to the row. How about the BOM of this year? Now we know the planned SSR of this year and the planned monthly sales of this year, which is here. It's easy to know the planned BOM using the planned SSR times the planned sales. And for the EOMs, we knew that each month's EOM equals to the following month's BOM. For last year, EOM of August equals to BOM of the September. Make sure we are selecting last year's BOM. And for this year's August EOM equals to the BOM of September of this year. Well, BOM of this year is here. Now we are looking at the last two sessions. Purchases at retail of this year equals to everything should be this year's number. Okay, this year's EOM plus this year's reduction in dollars. Sorry, plus this year's sales in dollars and less the BOM in dollars. And the BOM should be this year's number too. And we can drag this along. And the monthly and the seasonal total of the purchases equals to the sum of the 6 months purchases. And for the purchases at cost, we know that the purchases at cost equals to the purchases at retail times what we know is 100% or just 1 less the initial markup percentage, the 65%. That's what we can use. What we need to do is to fix the cell and then drag along. Again, we are going to sum them up to get the season total. For maintain the markup, actually for this section, we need to calculate the percentages first. The planned markup in percentage equals to the initial markup in percentage less the reduction in percentage. Make sure you are selecting this year's reduction of sales. Okay. And times 100% or just 1 less the initial markup in percentage. Make sure we are always using the IMU percentage cell and fix it with dollar signs and drag it through. Okay. And the maintained markup in dollars would be the percentages times everything would be expressed as a percentage of sales. So that's the reason we times this with times the percentage with the sales number. And make sure you are selecting this year's sales in dollars. Again, then we can apply this to the row and make sure for dollar numbers we can sum them up, but for percentage numbers we actually cannot. So what we do with percentage numbers, since we know the seasonal percent here, 7.5, and we can use the same formula as we did in planning the monthly maintain markup percentage. We can apply this to get the season maintain markup in percentage. Okay, make sure we're using the season reduction, and also D7 would be the initial markup for the season. And that's how we complete everything. Now how about the sales here? Okay, the total retail reductions for last year equals to sales. The sale here, the season total column and last year's dollar reduction row. This year's planning reduction equals to the sale here, and reduction percentages we can use should be equals to the reduction in dollars over the sales in dollars. And the average stock, this is a bit tricky here, because for the average retail stock we do calculate the average, but the average has 7 numbers. What we know is last year's BOM 6 months and the last month's EOM, which equals to the following month's BOM. Okay, the number we can find is here, the January's EOM. So we want 7 numbers to be averaged here. For this year, we also have 7 numbers. They are the BOMs of this year and also the EOMs of the last month. This is the average retail stock. The average monthly sales, what we can do is to apply average again, but this average will between 6 sales. This year's we do average of this year's planning monthly sales. Okay. The percentage change, what we can do is, well, we always do this year's number less last year's number over last year's number. The formula would be the same for the monthly sales. Okay, that's it for this week's activity.